I got to ask you a question, though. I mean, this is one of the most interesting things I've seen in our time covering sports and even in my time before watching it. You know, Chris Bosh really wants to come back.
Right.
And he's asking the NBA PA to make him get back. The team's holding him out because they're concerned about his long-term health.
Right.
Well, this is typally not the scenario, right?
You're right.
That we have
and you
imagined
like to see that.
and imagined in the history of sports.
And I can't remember the exact injury, but
well, he has blood clots. Every time he gets a bump or whatever, he gets a blood clot.
And honestly, I think his career is probably done.
It's close, if not.
And it's sad because you do like to see a guy who wants to be out there.
Right.
And you do like to see that, especially right now they're playing his former team, man. And you want to get out there and you want, especially against Toronto, you want to do that.
Right.
And you want to show him what you can do. This team would be insane if they had him at full strength. Blood clots are serious, though, man.
That's true.
And I just don't see.
I mean, imagine the scenario. He's not going to give up on his want to play.
Well,
so he's going to lawyer up, and he's going to be fighting the team who is protecting him to let him play. I think he'll probably win. And I'm not saying it's the good thing or the right thing. I think eventually he'll play, and I think it's a mistake, really, because there's more to life than basketball. He's got young kids, right?
It is absolutely
But it's such a flip, right, of the scenario we talk about in the NFL, right, of leagues or teams not protecting their assets or their players. I hate to call them assets, but that's how they call them. They're players, they want you to play. They pay you to play. They don't want you to sit out. And this is such a reversal. And a player so willing to fight.
Well, look at Derrick Rose, a guy who just sits out despite the doctors clearing him.
Right.
Just doesn't care.
He's nervous.
Look at guys like Carlos Boozer.
Right.
Just decides not to play in a pivotal game that will decide your playoff seeding.
Right. It's weird.
It is weird, and it's kind of refreshing to see, and I love his heart, but dude, this is bad. Blood clots are bad.
Right.
And I don't know the legalities behind it. I can't. I don't know how you can force a team to play a guy. I don't know how you can do that. So I don't even want to get into that.
Right.
But I think it's a big mistake for him to push forward. I understand why he does want to, and I really respect his heart, and I wish more players were like that. But
well, for me,
there's a line.
Sort of real philosophical question, right, is this. If you're a team or even a league, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Absolutely.
They're put in the position of like, dude, we care about your health. Like from 10 years from now, we want you to be alive.
Right.
You can die from blood clots. One of them breaks off and it gets into your bloodstream and it goes straight to your brain or your heart. It's over.
Right.
You don't recover from that sort of thing. And, I'm sure if you're Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, you're saying, man, this is like the worst case scenario where it's sort of bizarre because obviously Miami would be a much better team. And I think Miami's one of the only teams that can really challenge Cleveland, even without Chris Bosh, because they just have that voodoo, that Dwayne Wade voodoo, as I like to call it, that gets the job done. But I don't think they'll beat him, but I think they can challenge him. And
how awesome of a series would that be, though?
It'll happen. That Chris Bosh, even more so. And now the team and the owner and Pat Riley and the NBA PA are put in the position of we're fighting a team trying to protect the actual interests of a player. It's bizarre. It's not something that comes along every day. I don't know. I don't hear anyone talking about it in my limited sports radio listening on the daily. And it's sort of weird because
I've heard a few people talk about it.
What do they say?
Well, it was exactly along these lines. I wish I could remember who it was, but they basically said, there's a point where it doesn't become worth it. And, I watched a 30 for 30, the 85 Bears. I don't know if you've seen it. Epic, man. It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. And that's sports or anything.
Right.
And, there's an extended interview with Jim McMahon after they're done talking about the team and talking about all the stuff that he's dealing with these days. And he's got to see these special neurologists and go to these special doctors and have all this crazy treatment done, this experimental stuff, just to ease his pain a little bit so he doesn't feel this blistering, piercing pain in his skull 24/7. And they asked him straight up, would you do it again? And he said, no doubt.
Right.
No question.
It's sort of weird that in this country where you have this freedom, like, right? You know, I mean, if you choose to risk that, I mean, is that your choice? Clearly not. I mean, he's going to fight for that choice.
It is nice to see a team respecting the human being more than the asset.
Oh, absoltly. I agree with you.
So that just doesn't happen these days at all.
And my point is, I haven't heard anyone talk about it. Why aren't more people applauding that? Especially,
I'll tell you why. 2 reasons, I think.
Because they don't care. Everyone lies about what they care about. Every person who's not applauding it, who's in the media or whatever, is just sort of a hypocrite when it comes to the NFL or when it comes to player safety. Because if they were, they would be getting on their podium like they do with the concussion issue in the NFL, which I agree with.
Right.
All right? But they're not saying, Chris Bosh, no, dude, you can't play. Don't be an idiot.
Here's
more people. I need to hear from them. That's my beef.
Here's why I think they're not. 2 reasons. One, first of all, negativity sells. Negativity will get you ratings. It doesn't matter. I mean, you hear these hacks all over the country, locally, nationally, everywhere, where they are just pounding negativity and hitting that. Like locally, the rivalry is a big issue. And what are they talking about? They're not talking about the stuff on the field. What are they talking about? They're talking about the extracurricular stuff with the fans, the Utah and BYU fans. That's what they're talking about because that's what sells. That's what gets them ratings, which gets them ad space. I'm not, I am kind of criticizing that, but that's what they do. It's not unique to our local media, though, by any stretch of the imagination. And not all of the local media does that.
Right.
I want to make sure to state that. But that's a universal thing. It's just like bad news sells headlines. Controversy, or sells newspapers.
Right, but isn't this controversial? I mean, that's my point.
But here's the other thing, and this is more of kind of a distraction thing. The Golden State Warriors. They are the only story in the NBA this season. I mean, they really are. Record-setting year, MVP. Steph Curry set 1 million records, and now he's hurt. And now when is he going to get back? When is he going to get back?
Right.
And that's I think there's a lot of distraction, and this is kind of a good story on both sides with Chris Bosh and with Miami, both kind of doing the right thing, although Chris Bosh is doing it for the right reasons, but I think he's doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And that's not something a lot of guys want to talk about. It's just not, because it's not gonna get angry callers calling up and screaming and yelling at him.
Well, I'm sure if someone more eloquent than I and more famous than I just said what I said, I'm sure there'd be some crazy people calling. Because, I mean, no matter what, you're going to come down on this side of the issue, just based on your core beliefs of he should play. If he dies, that's his fault. Or, the league should stop it. Like I mean, it's a medical condition. It is controversial, but it's not getting any sort of play other than a brief summary. And if I'm the league and if I'm the Miami Heat, I am sort of frustrated by the fact that they're not talking about it. I mean, they're put in the position.
I agree 100%.
And also, like, even D Wade, I know he probably wants him back, but he knows what's best for him. Just like Chris Bosh, he's probably doing the right thing in his heart, but his mind can't tell him that. That risk is just too much.
I agree with that. Here's kind of a related question. I guess it's kind of along the lines. Where do you draw the line at? So here's what I'm getting at. Boomer Esiason very famously said on his radio show a couple years ago, and I wish I could remember which player it was. I don't off the top of my head. But there was a player whose wife was having a baby, and he was going to miss a game to go be in the delivery room. Do you think that is an acceptable excuse to miss a game?
Man.
The answer is yes. There is no other answer.
I mean, does he get paid for it? I don't know. I mean,
it was a baseball player.
A baseball player. So it's 162.
Right.
Probably in that.
I don't care if it's a football player.
It does on a certain to a certain extent.
That's ridiculous to me because if my kid's being born, I don't care what is going on. Right. I'm going to be. Right. You will never get that moment back. Right. And if I have to miss work to do it and take criticism, and Boomer Esiason ripped this guy to shreds. To me, there is a line, and I think having a baby, I think that is 100% an okay excuse to miss a game. In fact, not only that, it is your duty to be there when your child is born.
I agree. I mean, yeah, it is a good reason. The complication comes about, like, look, and we don't have this sort of issue in our life, but if you're an instrumental player on a team and you only have 17 games in a year, right? And it's week 14 and you're in the thick of a playoff push, I can see how if you're that important of a player, your teammates might be frustrated by that, right? And then I
screw them.
Well, yeah, that's fine, and I agree with you. You do what you think's right, in the end. But you got to recognize, I mean, you could seriously be letting down lots of people.
Poor them.
Well,
what is
it's
more
your
important?
job, I mean,
what is more important, your coworkers or your family? That to me, that's the only question that matters here.
I think that's an oversimplification of the situation.
I don't think it is.
I mean,
so
okay.
you would give, if you were a football player, you would give up one game. I mean, I'm not talking the Super Bowl. Then maybe you have.
Well, now you're hedging it. I mean, a game
it's
could
a
be like a
season
playoff game. A regular season game
Yes.
can become a playoff game, depending on the circumstances.
Well, you know what? If my team misses the playoffs and I got to hold my daughter for the first time,
right?
I would not trade that for anything, and I mean this. I would, if someone came to me and said, we're going to take this show national, we're going to give you $1 million contract right off the bat. But you're going to have to miss your next child being born. I would absolutely say, sorry, James. I know this. I'm letting you down.
I would think your dad would talk some sense into you, maybe.
No, you know what? I guarantee my dad would say, you're making the right decision.
Okay, fair enough.
Really? You would.
The opportunity to provide for your child.
Money?
I mean, well, it's the opportunity to provide. You're providing. I mean, that's a part of your job, right, as a parent. So while you're missing this extreme moment, the security of that exchange of gaining $1 million when right now you don't have $1 million, it might be something that you might have to think harder about. I think you're acting like it's so easy. And so,
for me, it is.
But you just said you'd think about it. And
I would think about it.
I can understand where Boomie's coming from. I wouldn't hold it against someone. Now, in our circumstance that you just laid out, I might be kind of pissed off at you because I don't know if that opportunity ever happens
I would
again
understand.
for us too.
I would understand you being pissed.
I mean, I don't know if that ever happens again for us.
Right.
So that's a little different than a season
that
you can replay. That's like maybe a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Sure. Well, okay. That's yes.
So that was a bad scenario. A game is different because you have another year, right? Probably, most likely.
Right.
So I would never begrudge anyone, a player, for doing that. But I can see the perspective.
I
can see it.
I can't get it.
I can see a perspective where a player might be bothered by that if you're that instrumental of a player.
Look, I'll tell you this, and then we'll move on. We'll actually talk about basketball. There is nothing more important than family, and I'll tell you this right now. Going through some hard times, it really makes you appreciate your family.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe that there is nothing more important than family. Have I let my family down at times? Absolutely.
Right.
Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. But there are certain moments that you will never get back, and I guarantee you will regret for the rest of your life. And if missing a day of work means you get to hold your child for the first time and look into their eyes, and that'll make you cry and tear up and all that stuff, then so be it. And if you let people down, that's too bad, and you can feel bad for letting them down.
Also, I think it's sort of hard, and it sort of depends on the scenario. I mean, a lot of teams, certain teams are like family, and the line is somewhat blurry. And to me or you, that may sound crazy and fantastical, but if you've been with a certain team for 10 years and you have 7 players who have ridden that 10 years with you, I mean, and you're tight with them, they become part of your family, And for us right now, and I can tell by your look, and so can all the people, you're finding that difficult to believe. But I consider you family, and we're not blood, and there isn't anything I wouldn't do for you.
I consider you family too.
Right.
I'm not saying that's not possible. Let me finish. I'm not saying that's not possible. What I'm saying is there are different levels, and having your child and being able to experience that, I would put
this $1 million. I'm thinking this $1 million
I turned
thing
it down,
happened.
dude.
I am so pissed off right now.
4 years
I know
ago.
it happened. I knew it. You called me and then hung up.
Yeah.
Then Allie was born. We couldn't just go for a day.
Allie was being. Well, here's the thing,
Bro, we could have postponed that or something.
We actually did have it. We knew when we were going to have her
right.
born.
Yeah. So you
It
can
was
plan
scheduled
these
with the
things.
doctor. So,
Right.
of course, like that day, I got a call.
Right.
Well, oh, sorry, dude. Can't do it.
Gotta go.
Gotta go.
$1 million.
I just didn't tell you.
For the poverty we live in now.
Right, exactly.
Full.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe. You can also click on the Dog and Deuce logo to be taken to our website. We also got a couple videos up. Thanks. We'll see you next time.